Elon Musk has opened the DOGE office, and like it or hate it, it's making some big changes in the stock market. Here to talk about some stocks that have the potential to see a big increase, all because of the changes Elon is making in his first 100 days in office, is Rob Spivey, the Director of Research at Altimetry Research. Rob, thank you so much for being here.
Bridget, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's get right to Elon Musk and his DOGE office. It's something quite literally everyone is talking about right now for a lot of different reasons. But I want to specifically talk about how the changes he's making could end up impacting the market.
People are talking about this like this is the first time that Elon Musk has been involved with the US government. People don't realize he's built his entire business off of the US government. You think about Tesla in terms of the money he got from the US government from that. SpaceX, right, in terms of what he did to donate to Obama. He's been inside of the US government for a while, so this isn't a surprise. What Elon's doing and everybody's panicking so much about and trying to figure out how it's going to impact the stock market, everybody thinks that it's chaos, but it's really not. There's actually 5 steps of what he's doing. He calls it his algorithm. And if you look at those 5 steps, you can start to actually map what he's doing in the federal government and then have the trickle-on effect in terms of what's going to happen for the stock market. Step 1 is he says is right, question every requirement. He basically says, hey, and that was the whole entire idea of going through with USAID and with the Department of Education. It's like, what is it that we're trying to do here? And then the second step, right, is delete any part or process you can. How do we basically figure out that we can wipe out this thing that we don't need or anything else? Then simplify and optimize, and then accelerate the cycle times, and then automate. And you know, the wild thing is when you step back and you think about, right, Elon's first 100 days, if you want to call it, versus Trump's first 100 days, he's already probably, but through step 2, if you think about it. And so what he's doing in terms of this hero complex is he's basically trying to figure out, how do I first simplify everything in the federal government? And then how do I automate everything? And that's actually the secret in terms of what's going to be really important for the stock market, because it's not going to be where people are focusing on right now. It's about those next steps.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think when people think about Elon being involved in the federal government, they instantly go to some of his companies, right? They're looking at what's Tesla doing? What are these other companies doing? But I think it sounds like you're more interested in a particular industry that could be impacted most.
I think you're exactly right. People think, oh, it must be that, you know, Tesla's going to get free run or anything. It's not that. And it's also not the other place that everybody's going, which is saying, oh, the biggest place the federal government spends is the defense industry, so the defense industry is going to get wiped out. It's not that either. When you get down into the guts of all this, it's an AI story. And it's an AI story all over the place. What, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, he was basically saying, hey, look, I am anti-AI on everything. And then what does he do? He goes out basically in the last year and he goes out and he builds Colossus, which I don't know, Bridget, if you've heard about what Colossus is, but this is a massive data center that he built outside of Memphis. Literally, it's supposed to take 3 years to build one of these. He built one in 120 days, less than a third of a year. And what he's doing is he then turned around and he said, oh, hey, I'm going to go inside the US government, and Colossus is all about basically powering an AI revolution. And he said, I need to actually be at the heart of the US government to empower this revolution. Because look, he's seen what's already starting to happen. You know, Palantir up, 300% or something in the last 6 months because of things that happened in terms of government contracts. Rocket Labs up 400%, Intuitive Machines up 150%. Because they're getting these AI contracts from the government. And what he's saying is, look, I need to be in the center of all this because I need to be able to make sure that as we build this out, we're building it the right way and we're building it in a way that's going to make it the most useful and most everything else. And so while everybody is trying to focus, to your point, on things like defense or anything else, what they need to realize is what he's trying to unlock is this idea of the US of AI, which is just a wild thing. And this isn't just an opinion from the outside. We have contacts inside DC, and this is what they're telling us is happening. So this isn't even a hot take by me. This is literally what we're hearing from people who are, you know, former Pentagon inside talking about these things in think tanks and everything else.
Yeah, you and your team have really done the research to pick 9 stocks in the AI industry that are expected to benefit from Elon Musk's changes that he's making in this new DOGE office. We will not share all 9 of those picks here today. You'll have to check out his offer to get all 9 of those, but you are graciously going to give us 3 picks that are really in the AI field that are expected to benefit from some of these government contracts like you're talking about. So let's start off with that list a little bit here, Rob. What is your first stock that's expected to see some growth all because of the changes Elon is making?
Yeah, and I mean, it initially would be like, well, yeah, but it's really deeper than what people are thinking about is Microsoft, MSFT. right? Of course, one of the big players in everything that's happening for AI. And also, what's important about Microsoft is a company that the US government trusts. It's used to working with, it knows how to work with. And what's happening at Microsoft, which is so interesting, is one, look, if Elon wants to be able to implement a lot of these AI things that he's going to want to do and automation that he's going to want to have happen, step 5 of his algorithm, he's going to need to rely on the people who know how to implement this stuff and work with the US government, and Microsoft is a huge player in this. Microsoft isn't just a company that sells AI services, AI solutions with OpenAI and everything else. Microsoft is actually a beneficiary of AI itself, because what Microsoft is already seeing happen is it's not just getting people to use AI, it is massively automating its own process. And for us, that's really interesting because that means it's getting a double whammy of benefits that's going to send that stock shooting a lot higher, even from what, 3 trillion or whatever it is now.
The value of this stock is already so high. How much growth could we be talking about in such an established company already?
We at Altimetry look at this thing called return on assets, right? In terms of a cleaned up way of understanding real profitability for a business. And Microsoft right now generates like a 30% return on assets. But what's really interesting is we're starting to see, because of that ability to basically reduce costs, right, effectively programmers, for its ability to be able to build new kit, it's starting to see that return on assets creep up. Its profitability is rising, and the market's not pricing any of that in. And when you get that, and the fact that this company is, compounding revenue at basically a double-digit rate, the ability for you to see significant upside in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, it's way bigger than anybody thinks about. As recently as 5 years ago, nobody thought we were ever going to have a $1 trillion company, right? And now we've got a whole bunch of $2 and $3 trillion companies. The ability for us to get a lot bigger than that is not crazy at all, with just how concentrated and how explosive this AI explosion is happening.
That's a really interesting point, and maybe comes into play with your second stock pick as well.
The second one is Alphabet, right? When you look, you can see where I'm going here. There is so much power behind these platforms, these hyperscalers in the AI space. And Alphabet's really interesting because everybody looks at it and they go, oh no, is ChatGPT and everything else going to disrupt their search business? And you're missing the point. Gemini, in terms of all of the performance metric, is right up there with ChatGPT, with Claude, with all of the other big chatbots out there. Alphabet has been at the forefront of this industry for 15 plus years between several of their different businesses. And so you look at all that and it's like, this is a business that is really benefiting, and the market, which is really interesting, is so focused on the idea that search could be disrupted, it's not realizing that it's going to be one of the most dominant players in AI, which protects search, but gives it a lot more growth also.
Alphabet is already such a huge company. How much room for growth is there, and what will really contribute to the growth of this company?
When you talk about AI as a business, there's this idea that, AI could create something like $60 trillion of incremental GDP over the next couple of years. There's really, I'll call it 5 players who kind of are the ones who are the platforms that a lot of that's going to have to be built off of. All of a sudden, it makes the idea of, wow, Google is really big, kind of pale in comparison in terms of those kind of numbers. And that's the exciting thing about AI is when you think about what Elon is doing in the center of the federal government, look, he's picking a lot of fights, and we've all seen all the fights that he's picking, and some of them he's going to lose, right? The courts have already stopped 1, 2, 3 things that he's trying to do. It's not about him winning every single fight for AI to explode. If you know what the Overton window is, it's about the idea of conversations that are okay to be had in the political, but also in the economic landscape. And he's shifting that Overton window to make AI being part of everything far more okay, which means for people like Alphabet, for people like Microsoft, and the third one that we're going to talk about, he's just pouring fuel on the fire and going to send things just shooting up so fast.
Yeah, let's get to that third pick of a stock out there that Elon's changes are really going to impact.
I'm probably guessing, thinking, oh, I know he's going to say Amazon next. I'm actually not going to say Amazon, even though it's, the third common hyperscaler. I'm actually going to say the hyperscaler that nobody often talks about, which is Meta, right? Formerly Facebook. The reason why is what Meta is doing with Llama, right, which is its open source AI code base and its AI platform. What everybody's realizing with the news on DeepSeek and what happened with DeepSeek and the idea of, oh, wow, you got this open source solution that's so much lower cost and everything else, but it's backed by the Chinese government, and who knows if we've got backdoors to let data flow back to the Chinese government, even if it's running on, your own system and everything else. What Meta has done with Llama, you've got the same opportunity for a low cost solution that you can build anything off of, and nobody's talking about it. And on top of that, when you talk about what's valuable for Microsoft, Alphabet, for Meta, they each sit on platforms of crazy data nobody else does that makes it better for them to be able to train these AI solutions. For Meta, it's literally every single thing that you put on Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook, right? It's all just sitting there for them to be able to mine to train their AI model to make it better than anybody else, just like it's all things that are data and work data related for Microsoft, just like it's things like YouTube, right? And the whole entire web for Google. So we just think Meta is really set up to take off too. And as we talk right now, Meta's been up 15 days in a row. There's a reason why, because people are starting to recognize it, and there's tons of room left to run.
I think this is such an interesting pick, Rob, because it's counterintuitive to a company that Elon would favor. He's gone on record wanting to get in fights with Mark Zuckerberg, and it's a direct competitor to one of his own companies. Why does that not really matter when it comes to the future of Meta's success?
When we talked about that $60 trillion and how Elon is pouring lighter fluid on an already exploding fire, what happens is it makes this massive opportunity that Meta is going to be at the heart of. But also, when you think about, people love names like Palantir and everything else, Meta is very, very tangentially related to that kind of thing in terms of how do you take data, create the idea of a digital twin and all of these other things that are going to need to happen for us to really let AI explode. And right, for the things that we're talking about, even for the government, Meta is going to benefit because of the fact that they're going to be the third, fourth person there, because the government's going to want to make sure when they're implementing AI, they have other options. The government always does this. But more importantly, it's about how it's going to unlock this explosion of AI across the entire US and entire world. And that US of AI is really taking off is why Meta is going to benefit.
3 great picks, but these are picks that a lot of people have heard of and know of. You have a list of 9 total stocks that you think are going to really take off. And the next 6 are a lot different than the ones that you just shared, right?
They're far more off the beaten path. They're the corners of AI that nobody's thinking about yet, that we're saying, hey, look, we needed to set the ante and say, look, these 3 that we talked about are going to participate, but these other 6, these are the ones who are going to help with implementation. These are the ones who are going to basically be creating the new tools off of AI that nobody's talking about. These are the ones that are going to fuel all of what we need to be able to have for AI to explode. And so we just think that it's a really compelling list of stocks. That's why we came out with a special report in terms of the US of AI and why we're so excited to get it in everybody's hands as soon as possible.
Scan the QR code or click the link in the description of this video to get that full report from Altimetry Research. Rob, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing some great information with our viewers.
Bridget, thanks so much. And I just hope everybody recognizes just how big this opportunity is. And just want to thank you again for having me today.
Thank you. And thank you for watching today, everyone. As always, happy investing.